You're tuned in to the Doc Mike radio show, simultaneously available on the Doc Mike music podcast, now available anywhere, anytime. He is a veteran songwriter who has written numerous hit songs, most notably as co-writer of the 1977 hit single, Baby Come Back, for the band Player, and has written numerous songs for other artists. She is his supportive partner and plays a vital role as his acting manager in coordination with other ventures, including all of his brands, and on the road as a liaison when he's performing, oftentimes with one of the most active touring bands, Ambrosia. And today is a very special day because he is also celebrating his birthday. I'm talking about the one and only Peter Beckett and his wife Eden. Welcome aboard, you two.
Thank you, man.
Hello. How are you?
It's good to finally have you both on the phone. It was great meeting you both in person and hanging out backstage. And it is such an honor to have you both on as my guests.
Well, thank you for doing that.
So first and foremost, Eden and I were talking about the Ambrosia family and the whole conglomerate of musicians that are included in that. And most of the time it's like a super group. Is that called Rock the Dock, or what's the proper term for that?
Well, it is called Rock the Dock. And people go in and out of it, you know. It's not always like everybody. Sometimes it's just John Ford Coley and me. Sometimes it's Elliot and John Ford Coley and no me. It's like a menu, actually.
What was your household like growing up as far as listening to music goes in Liverpool?
I had a brother who's like 3 years older than me, and I lived in like these little workmen's houses in Liverpool, kind of like in Hard Day's Night. You remember those row houses that the Beatles would run in and out of? That's what my house was like. And we had a front room that we called the parlor. It was pretty small to be a parlor. And my brother, in the evenings, we had a kind of what they called a radiogram or something. It was like some old wooden thing. And there was a radio station called Radio Luxembourg, which was huge all over Europe. They played all the current stuff. And my brother would like sit in there, have a beer, and he'd be listening to all this Buddy Holly stuff and everything. And I'd be outside with my ear at the door, you know, and picking up on it. And then I got a little older, and I had a friend. My brother followed the Beatles, actually, the whole Hamburg thing. He was totally into it. And he used to tell me about the whole thing. And I was too young to really get it. And then I had a friend who knew the bouncer on the Cavern Club. And he said, if we're really nice, he'll probably let us run in there for 15 minutes. It was the Beatles were playing a lunchtime session for the office workers, which they did all the time. All the Liverpool bands did. And we got in. He said, I'll let you in for 10 minutes. And it's like, you know, way down. It's like 2 stories down, brick cellar, 3 tunnels with a stage at the end of the middle one. I was 14 and I was just blown away. The Beatles were playing this thing. They'd just come back from Hamburg. They had the black leather on and they'd just gotten into the forward hairstyles, which actually were created by Stuart Sutcliffe's wife, Astrid, in Hamburg. You know who Stuart Sutcliffe is? He was the 5th Beatle. He was the bass player when McCartney used to play rhythm guitar. But he never came back to Liverpool into that whole new scene. I was blown away. It was so loud, louder than anything I've ever heard in my life, because bouncing off the bricks, you know, and so exciting and high energy. And then we got the hook and we got thrown out. That's really heard about 1.5 songs and changed me forever. A couple of days later, I was like shopping around the guitar shops in Liverpool, looking for something real cheap that I learned to play on, you know. And I found it. Actually, my dad bought me I started off on a 2-string banjo with a broken skin and just started banging around on the 2 strings. And a few months later, my dad bought me a really cheap Spanish guitar. And then I got a little old. And by 16, I was a professional musician in Liverpool, playing all over Europe and Scotland. And that's the beginning of it all right there.
Were the Beatles playing skiffle at that time, that kind of music?
No, they started off, they were all from skiffle groups. Lonnie Donegan, there were all these skiffle groups in Liverpool. That was the beginning of rock and roll. Folk and skiffle intermingled. And the truth is, there were a lot of GIs. All the bands from Liverpool that were older than me used to go to Hamburg and Frankfurt, and they'd play these 1-month stints in the clubs there. And I ended up doing that myself. 4 years later, they had all these Motown records, and they'd give them to the English bands, the Liverpool bands, really. And the bands would bring them back to Liverpool, and they'd learn the songs, and they'd start playing them at their gigs, including the Cavern. So all the bands were seriously influenced by the GIs in Germany. And I think that was the whole beginning of the Mersey sound myself.
Wow.
Peter, you actually played at the Cavern yourself later, right?
Well, in later days, I played many, many times at the Cavern, yeah. I was in a band, several bands actually, but my main band from Liverpool was called The Thoughts. Started off as Tiffany's Thoughts. Tiffany was a girl singer, and she was quite well known. She had a minor hit, and we used to back her, and then we left her, went down to London, and got a little bit of notoriety. We put out a single written by Ray Davies, produced by Shel Talmy, and it was called All Night Stand. It was a Kinks song, and it got a little bit of attention. Got me out of Liverpool, too.
That club is, to rock and roll people, it's just a staple venue. How did you run into Robert Stigwood?
Well, you're taking a huge leap there.
I know I did.
Well, take the leap. Take the leap.
I'll take the leap. All right, so I'm in America now. That was a huge leap. But so jump from Liverpool, skip London, and go straight to America. I was brought over to be in a so-called supergroup Riders over here. I was the English guy, Steve Kipner, who's, hit songwriter, and another guy who was a producer, Michael Lloyd. It started off being called Friends, and it turned into Sky Band, and Michael Lloyd left, and we put an album out on RCA, and then the band split up, and I was pretty much just bumming around LA, playing here and there wherever I could get a pickup gig. I went to a party one night in the Hollywood Hills, and I bumped into this guy, J.C. Crowley. And I never got the memo, neither did he, but everybody was supposed to wear white at this party. Robin Williams, a whole bunch of celebrities there. We weren't celebrities, but we were there for some reason. I don't know why. And we did not have white clothes on. We just had jeans, and he had a red T-shirt on. I had a black one. And we kind of laughed because we were the only guy. And he was from Texas and a songwriter, and me being from Liverpool. And we were fascinated by each other. And we said, let's get together and write some songs. Another big leap here. In his garage in Hollywood Hills, sitting around writing a handful of songs. And we started playing around LA, just going into producers' offices and playing these songs, and without much attention. And then we came up with Baby Come Back. And we did it in, I would say, 2 afternoons. We went into Dennis Lambert and Brian Potter's office, and we did the first few songs, and they're like, yeah, not bad, not bad. And then we played Baby Come Back, and their mouths dropped. Their faces just went, hello. We did a demo, and they took it to Al Corey at Robert Stigwood, RSO, and Al Corey signed us. We went and made an album, which was called Player, but that's a whole other story, the name.
The reason why I asked about Robert Stigwood is because I know that he worked with the Beatles.
I didn't know that.
He worked under him, from what I understood.
That's very possible, but that's way before my time. In my day, in my association with him, it was all the Bee Gees, Eric Clapton, and he had the RSO label going. And I didn't know anything about him before that, to be honest with you.
That's very interesting, because that's how he got the Bee Gees. That's what I remember the story being, because I know that John Lennon gave Morris Gibb his first guitar. I'm just trying to bridge the gap. Yeah. I thought for some reason the Liverpool thing followed suit with Brian Epstein.
No, there's no scene there for me. What I told you is what happened for me. But I did have a situation earlier on with my band, The Thoughts, the ones that did the Kinks song. We had a manager called Tony Stratton Smith, and he had some London bands, and he had us. And he knew Brian Epstein. There was a big theatre in London. It was called the Savile Theatre. Brian Epstein put it on, and he knew our manager, and they were friends. And they were putting on a big concert. And the concert was The Who, Jimi Hendrix, who then had Hey Joe out as a single. No one in America knew him yet. He made it in England first. And then my manager's band, a band called the Coopers, were third on the bill. And they threw us on to open the show, The Thoughts. And we were just 4 scruffy little kids from Liverpool. We had no clothes. So they took us to Carnaby Street and bought us these corduroy suits that were pretty great, actually. So we're all like sitting around in the dressing room, nervous as hell, 17, 18 years old in our corduroy suits, waiting to open this huge show. And there's a knock on the door in the dressing room. Open the door, Brian Epstein walks in with a bottle of Moet and Chandon champagne with a little ticket on it. And it said, "Congratulations on your first show at the Savile Theatre. Break a leg, Brian Epstein." And he shook all our hands and he left. Four of us were sitting there and like, "Oh, let's drink yes." The lead guitarist grabbed the ball, took the little note off from Brian Epstein, threw it in the bin, popped the cork, slugged the champagne, and went on and did the gig. And I really, really wish I had that little label now, but I don't. We got to be on this huge gig. And we played and nobody really cared. We did about 5 songs and we got off. And the show went on. The Cougars went on. Nobody cared. And then Hendrix came on. And I was standing in the wings next to Daltrey and Townsend. And nobody had seen Hendrix yet. And he goes into his whole thing. And he's setting fire to the guitar and everything on stage. And, you know, The Who started all that kind of stuff. But all of us were just standing there going, oh, my God, you know, it was so ridiculous. And then The Who went on, and they were great, of course. And so that was it. The show was incredible. I found out later that all 4 Beatles, I've had a few kind of run-ins with the Beatles, all 4 Beatles were in the box. They had their own box in the theater that night. So the Beatles saw me play. Unless they were in the bar, I wouldn't know that. And there's a funny little thing here. There's a guy called Bill Harry he ran a newspaper in Liverpool called Mersey Beat, followed the Beatles and the Mersey Sound, the whole thing. He called me out of the blue because I had said something about this gig at the Savile Theatre. And he called me and he said, "You were not on the gig," because I was there. And I said to him, "I beg to differ, but I was there too. And I promise you I was there. And I never saw you." So we had this little confrontation. This guy's written like 4 books on the Beatles. He calls me back about a week later and he says, "I totally apologize. I found a poster and you were totally on that show and all 4 Beatles were in the box." So there you go. Lots of funny little things here, but
No, that's just a great story. I mean, just from just your Liverpool connection alone, and just the thing with Liverpool is some of my favorite artists. Well, one of my other favorite artists, and okay, a year from there, the Beatles are from there, obviously, but A Flock of Seagulls are from Liverpool as well.
that's right. That's right.
And Mike Score, who's like now he's pretty much the namesake of it, but he'll still play with the original guys. But I think Liverpool, there's some more than just the connection of the good music. I just love the humor. I love just every one of the bands that, like the 3 of you guys, like the 3 bands play A Flock of Seagulls. Obviously the Beatles. Everybody loves the Beatles. When it comes to like, they're easily in the the lexicon of any kind of Western music lover. But I just think that, I mean, was the music scene always that affluent through the years, or is that just like
It was ridiculous. The Liverpool music scene was freaking crazy. And like I told you before, you know, the GIs had a lot to do with, there was an influx of this Tamla Motown music. And then the Liverpool people started writing their own songs in that kind of style. And that's where this stuff came from. The Beatles, you know, they did a lot of, you know, I don't want to, but I need, all those Tamla Motown songs. They used to do them on stage. Twist and shout, for God's sake, you know. Anyway,
no? That's you're absolutely
it was
right.
very, very, very alive.
Well, and it's funny that you say twist and shout, because I worked with some folks from New York a long time ago, and hey, a long time ago I went to this club and I seen this skinny black guy in the middle playing guitar, not moving, and then he comes back from England and all of a sudden he's hanging off the rafters playing with his teeth, and then it's like, that's Jimi Hendrix, and it's like,
Jimi Hendrix, that's right, yeah.
And like you said, Jimi Hendrix was popular overseas, didn't really break here until after, sad to say, until after he passed,
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, I was alive and well then, and playing in bands around, you know, mostly Liverpool, but around the country. And as that went on, I moved down to London, and he was playing around the clubs. I think even when he had Hey Joe, it was like a reasonable hit in England. And there were clubs like the Speakeasy in London and the Revolution, and he would get up and jam. These were places where like all the musicians would go after their gigs and have a drink, and he'd get up, jump up on stage with whoever was playing on the stage. And I saw that a few times too. And so the scene in England was ridiculous, 60s. It was just amazing. We're not talking yacht rock days here, by the way.
So you were building your career after the Thoughts, and then I saw that you auditioned for Badfinger at one point.
Well, that's another good story. I got a call from this guy. I don't remember his name. He was the manager. I was living in London. I was out of work again. I was just hanging around and going to bars and stuff. And I got this call from this guy, and he was kind of sounded spaced out, and he was the manager. And he says, Peter, we're forming a band, and we're looking for somebody who's out on a limb and looking for something to belong to and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, what is it? And he said, well, we're forming this band, and we'd like you to come down tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I said, okay. And that night I went out. I went to a party, got drunk, and ended up with some babe in some apartment in London. Woke up and it was 11 o'clock. And that was that pretty much for the audition. And I later found out that it was Badfinger and Joey, who was a friend of mine in Liverpool, Joey Mullen. We kind of were the same kind of guy. We were guitarists, we sang, we even looked a little alike. And he got the job. And very sorry to say that he died a short while ago.
Yeah, back in March.
Yeah, but before that, two of those guys committed suicide, and there's a whole thing right there that I'm kind of lucky I avoided it, I think.
Joey was the last member of the actual original lineup to pass,
Yes,
correct?
that's right, yeah. Well, he went round for a while as Badfinger, and he had sidemen and stuff with him. Actually, I spoke to Joey. I hadn't spoken to him for 40 years since. No, that's not true. When I lived up in Lake Arrowhead. In the early 80s, I spoke to him. But then again, about 10 years ago, when I lived in Calabasas in LA, he called me and we had a conversation. He said, I'm coming to town to do an album. And we spoke for about an hour about stuff. And he said, I'd like you to sing on it and play a little guitar and stuff. And I said, great, I'll do it. And then I never heard from him again. I've never heard from him since. I guess he came into town. I don't know what happened with the recording or whatever, but that's the last time I spoke to him anyway.
I talked about the Robert Stigwood organization, and we jumped back to that era of 74, 75, 76, that leading up. What was...
Are you in love with Robert Stigwood? What's going on here?
Well, because that label at the time had Saturday Night Fever. I mean, these were big, major releases, and your album was one of them.
Well, of course. It was like Grease was the first big thing, I think. Was Grease before Saturday Night Fever? I don't remember.
Saturday Night Fever was 77. Grease was 78.
Okay, so Grease was the follow-up thing, yeah. Yeah, that's true. And they had all this stuff going. They had Clapton. They had a bunch of girl singers whose names escape me now. But they were just having hit after hit. So the liaison with Dennis Lambert and Brian Potter through Al Corey to Robert Stigwood is how we got signed. There's a little thing there, too, because we were just a little band rehearsing in a place called Rats in North Hollywood. It was a rehearsal joint, pretty scruffy. We'd been rehearsing there for a while, trying to get this band together, and we had no name or anything. As that went along, we had recorded the album, and we're still in there rehearsing. The album came out, and we're rehearsing one afternoon. Air Supply were in the room next door, by the way, rehearsing. And our manager comes running in, Paul Palmer, and he says, oh, my God, you're number 80 on the charts. And that was the moment in my life. I mean, even everybody just was like, oh, God, oh, my God. And even bigger moment than when we knew it hit number one. And that's the truth. Because I'd never had a sniff of a hit before,
Having a radio channels, I gone through pretty much Players album by album. And I got to say, as a band, as an overall band, Player covered so many different fashions of rock, not just soft rock. Man, there was times where you guys were in the full-on like hard rock category on some of the singles.
Silver Lining. My wife's favorite song. That's probably about as rocky as we've got. I mean, if you're going to have any music in this, you should play Silver Lining. We kind of saw ourselves not so much as Air Supply, more like Foreigner, more like a pop rock band, not so much soft rock, because it wasn't all soft rock. Some of it was, but we did do some harder edge stuff. The second album, Danger Zone, because of the Robert Stigwood thing, we knew we were going to go out with Eric Clapton, and we were recording that album. So I geared it a little harder edged with that in mind. And that's Silver Lining, Danger Zone. Those songs are all a little bit heavier, I wanted the music to all have a vein that ran through it, And I always had a problem with that. And I used to complain to people, and I'd say, I wish I could just, keep everything sounding similar. But I'd go and do a hard rock song, and then I'd do a ballad, and then I'd do a Latin thing or something crazy. And then somebody said to me, well, look at the Beatles. And that kind of put me straight. They did a bit of everything. And nobody had a problem with that.
I think Tip of the Iceberg has like a really heavy sound to it too.
That's right. That's the fourth album.
When I heard Up Tip of the Iceberg, there's times where I've heard that song come on, and it sounds like Gene Simmons from Kiss to me. Just the voice.
Well, I had a big studio, though. I've got a little studio now, but I had a real studio then, and I had all the latest gizmos and sounds and samples and everything. And so I started doing all that stuff. I did some really strange songs with some strange. So, taking out that song is, you're absolutely right. I went through this phase. If you listen to Room with a View, that was the start of it right there. I got back with Dennis Lambert after that for the fifth album, fourth, for the fourth album, Spies of Life. And that was a much poppier album and better album. There were some good sounding songs on that.
Overall, I think that album, Spies of Life, was so well-rounded. It's like it encapsulated some things are better left unsaid. That song's a masterpiece.
Well, now you're getting back into yacht rock, see? That there are much more yacht rock things on that album. The Room with the View album, I was experimenting, and then I got back into writing things that sounded like hit songs.
Well, so you're kind of leading me back to the yacht rock thing. When I hear your voice, like I said, I heard Gene Simmons at one point, which to me, Gene Simmons is not the best singer. But when I hear your voice, and you can go in that direction, but also too, there's times where like I feel like I'm full on hearing R&B coming from your voice. Where did you get your chops from? Like, what were you listening to?
All that Tamla
You were
stuff,
a big fan of the Righteous Brothers early.
I love the Righteous Brothers.
There we go. Yeah.
In fact, and I'll tell you, when we were writing Baby Come Back that afternoon, me and J.C. Crowley in L.A., we had the riff, we had the verse, I came up with the chorus, and there was something still missing. We thought, what if we did like a Righteous Brothers thing in the bridge? The way, you had the low, and you had the other guy. And so we just put that thing together, Nothing left for me. I can't believe I hit that note.
You sure did.
I don't think I've hit that note in 10 years. That's where it came from, right there.
You just blew my mind right now. So now your life in LA, I know that you moved in 1974. Once you landed in LA, were you like, this is it, this is where I want to be?
Well, I don't remember how old I was, but I was in my 20s and later 20s, I think. I need to call my memory. Eden? How old was I in 1974?
Well, you were born in 1948, so you do the math.
Don't tell everybody that.
Oh, yeah, like they can't look it up on Wikipedia.
Anyway, I was in my late 20s.
So,
what was your question?
No, so I'm going into now the love story of Eden and Peter, because Eden, I know that you're born and raised in LA, right?
I was, absolutely. I was a Valley girl. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I went to Grant High School, the same high school as everyone from Toto, or all the Picaros at least. In fact, Toto played at our high school when I was a sophomore, I think, because they were a few years older than me. Peter and I met at a friend's house up in Calabasas area. And very funny story. I went to a friend's house for like a Christmas thing. And I'm sitting there, and there's these guys playing Christmas songs. Two guys on guitar.
On acoustic guitars, yeah.
Acoustic guitars. And I happened to be sitting next to one of them there by the fireplace. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, these guys are really good. And I was talking to this one guy with the British accent and the blue eyes. Had no idea who he was. Had no idea who the other guitar singer was. I just thought they were really good. And then I left. My son was there. I had to go. And I found out a couple of years later because my friend who hosted the party kept calling me and said, remember that guy you were talking to who was singing? I said, yeah. Well, he keeps asking about you because he's getting a divorce and he likes you. And so I go, well, who is he? What does he do? He goes, well, he's Peter Beckett. I go, who? You know, the band Player. Who? And he goes, you know that song, Baby Come Back? I said, oh, I know. That's so funny. I didn't know that he was a professional musician. That explains why he was so good. So was the other guy. She said, well, the other guy was Elliot Easton from the Cars. And I'm like, oh, I'm so an idiot.
Shoot.
So I have no idea who either of these guys were. Long story short, he contacted me. We started dating and we had kids about the same age. And we ended up moving in together in Calabasas and raised our boys together. And it was great. We loved it there in Calabasas. We lived there for 10 years, but we got evacuated 3 times in 3 years because of fires. We said, where could we move that will never get evacuated again? And so we picked Northwest Washington. So we moved up here.
Where it rains all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So we moved up here in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And we love it here.
It's funny because Virginia and I moved to Ocean Shores around that time.
Right. I remember you were there. It is truly one of the most beautiful areas in the world. We want to stay here in the summer because it's the best place to be. But could you please find us gigs in Florida or Hawaii in January and February?
Oh,
so
yeah.
We can get out of here.
Winters are rough in Washington.
Mike, we have about 2 weeks here in July and beginning of August that is called, what do they call it? Summer.
Like I said, if we could just get out for a month or so in the winter, it would be the perfect place to live.
So, Peter, going back to music, after your time in Player, you began writing songs as a songwriter for other artists and even working on a number of different soundtracks. But how did this lead into your stint as a member of the Little River Band?
So, Little River Band, you ask? Well, yes, I can fill you in on that. So I had kind of done with Player. I was, had this version of Player, that version of Player. I did this album, that album. And then I started getting into TV and film music, and I was doing real well. I got Grammy nominated for St. Elmo's Fire and a bunch of other movies. My manager, Paul Palmer, managed Little River Band also. I think we're looking at 1989 here. He called me and he said, Little River Band has a new album coming up, produced by Dennis Lambert, and we're shooting a video in Agora, which is like up the street from you. And Graham Goebel has left the band abruptly. Would you go stand in the video and literally a couple of miles up the road from you? And so I said, sure. And so I went up to this club, just stood in on the video. They did it. A couple of days later, I got a call. It was Steve Housden, the guitarist, and he said, we're doing this tour of Australia. Would you like to do it with us? And I said, well, how long is it? And he said, about a month. I had all this film and TV work, and I said, I could probably make a hole here for that. I hadn't been on stage for, ages, 10 years at least. And so I dug out my black leather pants. They didn't fit. And so I took a razor blade and I sliced down the back of them to make enough of a slit where you get into the.
Oh, Lord.
And this is the truth. I shouldn't be telling people this. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And so I ended up doing that tour with those guys. I had the time of my life. And I ended up in the band, had no intention of doing it. Ended up in the band for 8 years. I toured with them for 8 years. Wrote 2 or 3 songs for them too.
There's people that have actually saw that lineup that I've seen comment in the Yacht Rock group, and they were just like, I got to see Peter Beckett with Little River Band, and it was just fucking amazing.
Yeah. Glenn Shorrock was still in the band, and Derek Felici. We had original members at the time. I loved Red Shark. He's a serious showman. I swear to God, he's like one of the best showmen. I wrote a song called Soul Searching, and it sounded like Joe Cocker on it. So when I was in the band, when we'd do the shows, he'd come out, and instead of just doing Soul Searching, he'd do Joe Cocker Soul Searching. And it was just classic, And what was the other song he used to do? Rolling on the river.
Well, he dressed as...
When he dressed as Tina Turner, and he put on a little skirt and fishnet sock. Oh my God! And he'd come out and do Tina Turner, and the wig and the spiky wig, and some of the best stuff I've ever seen on stage. He was absolutely brilliant. He's like our Australian national treasure. He had his own comedy show in Australia for a while. Yeah. I talked to him not too long ago. He's still alive and kicking.
I think he was an amazing showman, even more than...
Great showman. Yeah.
Just being a performer. He was a singer. Yeah. He was meant to be on stage. Probably could have done Broadway.
Yeah, well, I think he might have. I don't know.
Yeah, their music, I think Little River Band's catalog it is amazing. Again, I think that all the bands that we're mentioning, Ambrosia, Player, that era of music, I think the musicianship and the quality of the songwriting has never returned to those levels, especially from those artists, including you could throw Jim Messina in there and, Poco and Rusty Young. And it just seemed like everyone strived so hard to make such great quality product, which you don't really hear anymore.
Funny you should mention Rusty Young. I'm looking at a CD on my shelf in my studio here. There's a movie called Staying Together. And I'm looking at the back, and the first song is a song called The More Things Change. And Paul Cotton was actually the singer. Rusty Young was also the singer, but Paul Cotton was in the band. And it's a great song. If you ever want to look it up, The More Things Change. That's all I got to say. Your turn.
Tell me about the Beckett band. The first thing I think of is Major League, because Major League was on K-Rock, which is this radio station in LA. Eden, I know you're familiar with K-Rock, but they were playing Wild Thing.
Oh, of course.
With which was by X, and I was like, "Who is this? Joan Jett? Wild Thing!" And I turn around, and there's this Beckett hard rock song on there, which was like in the movie.
What was the song?
Oh,
Wild Thing.
How Can the Girl Refuse?
That's it. You got it. And that was on my solo album on Curve Records, called Beckett. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
All right. I got you.
And I wasn't sure if that was you at first.
Yeah, that's me.
How Can the Girl Refuse is the song you're talking about, right?
Correct.
And there's a music video to that song. Who is with you when you're singing that?
Dave Amato was on guitar from REO. He played with Player for a couple of years, and I love Dave. He's one of my favorite guitarists. And so we did that video for Major League, and he's in it. And he's got like hair from heaven down to his ass, ridiculous. And I love Dave.
And it goes back and forth between the band and then scenes from the movie.
Yeah, Charlie Sheen is in it and everything.
Yeah, it's a really fun music video, actually.
And I remember that album compilation, and I remember seeing the Beckett name. It didn't click until more recent. I was like, hey, I think that's Peter Beckett. And I was like, it is Peter Beckett.
What's that other movie you did, honey, with Marky Mark?
Marky Mark? Oh, yeah, what the hell was that? Oh, yeah, Rockstar.
Rockstar.
Yeah, no, but that wasn't my voice. That was my song, but it was
your
the
song.
guy in the
That's
band's
right.
voice, yeah.
Oh, really?
But there was something, did an interview the other day, and the guy brought up some of the things I've done where it's my voice and not the actor, So I've done a lot of things where it's been my voice, and I did a thing, it was called Shake, Rattle, and Roll. It was a CBS miniseries some time ago, and Graham Nash wrote some stuff with a friend of mine, Steve Plunkett, that I write with. I ended up being the voice of the actor in the movie for like 7 songs. And I mean, I get credit and everything. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the first one. There's a song in there by Power Tool. And guess who Power Tool is?
You?
Me.
I remember that one as well.
Yeah. 2 heads are better than 1.
I used to have that CD. Shake, Rattle, and Roll, that had fictional characters that were similar to, what was it, like the 5 Heartbeats?
Yes, it was. I actually liked it. When it came out, something was happening at the time, some major event. I don't think it did that well, but it was on for a couple of 3 nights.
We're looking at Sunset Fest Cabo. So Here's the irony about Sunset Fest Cabo. It was inspired by this Yacht Rock documentary. I just talked to Garrett Price. So they brought on Ambrosia, and so you guys are performing Friday night. Are you going to be doing any special, like, giving it all, or any secrets that you're going to be?
You should say that. Eden can probably give you more information on this, but Giving It All gets a higher rating on Yacht Rock than Baby Come Back.
I love that song, and I was driving with my son the other day, and he was playing his playlist, and of course, my son's almost 25, so he's got a lot of songs that aren't my cup of tea. So we're listening to his playlist, and then Giving It All comes back. And he goes, this song rocks. So I thought that was really cool that my son knew that song and had it on his playlist.
Now, I'm looking at the Yacht and Yacht website. Some things are better left unsaid is at a score of 88 out of 100. Giving It All is at 66.25. So remember,
okay.
they've restarted the podcast. And so there's been a lot of songs added.
Well, I hope I'm making some money from it.
Maybe the royalties will jump up there.
Exactly. So let's talk Sunset Fest Cabo and Night 1, where Ambrosia and a number of artists underneath this umbrella are scheduled to perform, including yourself, Peter. But let's shed a little bit more light on the Ambrosia connection. And it's not just the band, and it's not just the artists that are appearing with Ambrosia, but it's also the ladies behind the scenes. Can you shed a little bit more light about what goes on behind the scenes with Ambrosia?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Ambrosia and us and John and all those people, we've become like a family because we've done so many gigs together. We were there on the cruise when Joe Puerta and Shannon got married on the Rock and Romance cruise. And that was a beautiful moment. Shannon, she does for Ambrosia what I do for Peter. But of course, hers is like herding kittens because she's dealing with 5 or 6 people where I only have to deal with Peter. But the great thing is that we can call each other, we can text each other about anything and support each other through all that stuff, because there's a lot of crazy things that happen on the road. I'm sure you can imagine. There's a lot of last minute stuff that all of a sudden she's got to deal with. So many different things that are happening. And I really admire her for doing that, including she handles, helping with the setup and the sound and everything. And that's more than I can do. I can get Peter's pedals on and off stage. That's about it. But at least I get him to the gigs on time.
Hey, that's a pretty big deal, getting those pedals on and off the stage. It really is. And Mary's a part of that as well, right?
Well, Mary and Burley, they're probably one of our dearest friends, too. I mean, we've known each other for years. In fact, Burley, before I ever met Peter or any of them, Burley was actually the drummer in Player for a while.
Oh, shoot.
So it's the music business. It's actually a very small group of people. And like Peter has illustrated time and time again with his stories. And Al Stewart, by the way, Al Stewart is probably one of the best storytellers I've ever heard in my life. I sat one time and listened to Peter and Al Stewart talk, I don't know, for an hour and a half
at our house,
about the old times and London and all these people. And so many people they have in common they've known over the years. So it does get to be like a family. And the fact that they're all still able to do it at their age, too, is amazing. I'm just amazed. All keep going, and they love it.
Hey, Mike.
Yes?
Mike, is it okay if I go take a 5-minute nap and come back?
So you're leading me into my next subject, which is Baby Come Back Wines.
Yacht Rock Wines.
Oh,
Wasn't it Baby Come Back Bubbly?
Well, Baby Come Back Bubbly is our first forage. We put out a Baby Come Back Bubbly rosé and then a white, and that actually sold out
because we did the documentary.
It was a
Paramount Plus.
You're talking about the Sometimes When We Touch.
Yes, that one.
That was a great documentary.
Well, if you saw it at the end, they showed all the Baby Come Back Bubbly pouring into glasses, and they said, well, there's one guy who didn't miss the boat here. He's got Yacht Rock Wines. And then like 2 days later, a whole load of champagne was sold out.
We've got new champagne. We've got new Baby Come Back Bubbly coming out. And we also now are doing, it's called a Captain's Cab, a very nice Cabernet, and then Captain's Chardonnay, which is so smooth, no static at all, and they're going to be great. So we'll be out probably in the next month or two with those.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Peter and Eden, I just want to thank you for joining me today on the Dockmaster Mike Radio Show and the Dockmaster Mike Music Podcast. Everyone, check out Yacht Rock Wines to find out more about their wine brand. And also, tickets are still available for Sunset Fest Cabo, where you can see Ambrosia alongside with Peter Beckett, John Ford Coley, Walter Egan, and Elliot Lurie on October 24th at Sunset Fest Cabo, the 3-day event happening down in Cabo San Lucas with a number of different artists, including Kenny Loggins, Christopher Cross, and Rick Springfield. You've been listening to the Dockmaster Mike Radio Show and the Dockmaster Mike Music Podcast, now available anywhere, anytime.